In 1929, a group of historians were cataloging forgotten documents in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. Buried in a pile of old charts, they found a fragment of a map, drawn on gazelle skin, dated 1513, the western coast of Africa, the eastern coast of South America. Both accurate, expected for 1513. But at the very bottom of the map, a long curving landmass, Antarctica, a continent that would not be officially discovered for another 307 years, shone without ice. The man who drew this map claimed he did not discover these places. He copied them from older maps, maps whose origins, even today, nobody can fully explain. Piri Reis was not a mystic or a fraud. He was one of the most respected admirals in the Ottoman Empire, a career sailor, a scholar, a man who spent decades collecting every chart, every map, every sailor's account he could find. In 1513, he assembled all of it into a single world map, a gift for Sultan Selim. He documented his sources carefully, about 20 charts and world maps, Portuguese maps, Arab charts, a map from Christopher Columbus himself. And then this. In his own handwriting, on the map itself, Piri Reis wrote that some of his sources dated back to the time of Alexander the Great, 4th century BC, over 1800 years before he drew this map. That single inscription is what started everything. The southern landmass is the heart of the controversy, and it deserves a clear-eyed look, not just the theory, and not just the debunking. Here is what is actually true. In 1960, the United States Air Force examined the map. Captain Lorenzo Burrows wrote a letter stating the southern coastline did appear to match the subglacial topography of Antarctica, the shape of the land beneath the ice, as confirmed by seismic surveys. That is a real document from the U.S. Air Force, not from the internet. Here is also what is true. Antarctica has been covered in ice for somewhere between 15 and 30 million years, not 6,000. Not 10,000, millions. The theory that requires a warm Antarctica in human history needs the entire scientific record on ice ages to be wrong. But here is the part most videos skip. When geologists digitally stripped the ice from Antarctica using modern data and compared that coastline to the Piri Reis map, the match was imprecise. It only works if you rotate, resize, and distort the map significantly. And the text Piri Reis wrote next to that southern landmass, it says, "Large snakes are found here. The Portuguese did not land because it is very hot. Snakes, heat, Portuguese avoiding it. That is not Antarctica, that is Brazil." The more likely explanation is that the southern landmass is a distorted extension of South America, bent downward on the map, because Piri Reis was trying to fit a curved coastline onto a flat surface without the mathematical tools to do it correctly. Other maps from the same period show the exact same distortion. But dismissing the Antarctica theory does not make this map ordinary, because the real mystery is not what it shows, it is where it came from. Piri Reis listed his sources, 14 charts and 6 medieval world maps. Among the charts, 8 that he called Jafarieh. He said these came from the days of Alexander the Great. Historians believe he was referring to the work of Claudius Ptolemy, a 2nd century Roman geographer whose maps were the most advanced of the ancient world. Ptolemy himself based his work on even earlier sources going back to Eratosthenes, the man who calculated the circumference of the Earth in 240 BC, and got it almost exactly right. That chain of knowledge, Eratosthenes to Ptolemy to medieval copies to Piri Reis, represents nearly 1,800 years of accumulated geographic information. Most of it is gone. The Library of Alexandria burned, wars destroyed archives, copies of copies degraded. What Piri Reis had access to in 1513, we do not know the full extent of it. The Ottoman Empire was the inheritor of centuries of Greek, Roman, Arab, and Persian knowledge. Istanbul had libraries that Europe had never seen. Some of what Piri Reis copied may have come from sources that no longer exist anywhere on Earth. Not from a lost civilization, not from aliens, from real sailors and scholars whose work simply did not survive. And that is genuinely unsettling, because it means we do not know the full history of human exploration. We know the history that survived. Here is the final piece most videos either overstate or dismiss entirely. How accurate is this map actually? The coast of Africa and the Mediterranean. Very accurate. This was well-charted territory by 1513. The Caribbean, badly wrong. Cuba is unrecognizable. Columbus apparently drew it, believing he was near Asia, and that error made it into the map. The coast of Brazil, remarkably accurate. More accurate than it should be given the tools available. The most likely explanation is that the Portuguese had been mapping that coastline repeatedly through the late 1400s, and Piri Reis had access to those charts. There is a strong argument, and historical evidence, that the Portuguese reached Brazil before Columbus reached the Caribbean, and kept it secret for strategic reasons. The 1494 Treaty of Tordesillas conveniently drew a line that placed Brazil in Portuguese territory, before Brazil was officially discovered. That alone is a more interesting story than lost civilizations. The Piri Reis map is not proof of ancient aliens or a forgotten civilization, but it is proof of something almost as strange, that somewhere between Alexander the Great and the Ottoman Empire, across 1800 years of wars, fires, and lost libraries, a chain of geographic knowledge survived, imperfect, distorted, incomplete, but real. We do not know everything that was in those sources. We never will. And that is the actual mystery of the Piri Reis map. Not what it shows, what it remembers.